When you need someone to talk to and you don't know what to do, call us 4400. When you're feeling all alone and they turn their back on you, call us 4400. Call us 4400. Call us 4400. Call us.
This is Kind Counseling on the App podcast with your hosts Cammy Roberts, Fred Charles, and Danya, and me, D. Devontae. Okay, let's go.
Hey, what's up, man? How's everybody doing today?
All
Good,
right.
good.
All right.
Okay, man. How's everybody's summer going so far?
Fabulous.
Good.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So, what's going on, Fred?
I'm on vacation.
Oh wow, the 3 month vacation.
68 days.
68 days.
Yeah,
You got it.
wow.
Down.
That's
All
what's
right,
up.
man.
Got it. That's cool.
It's good to be on vacation, spending time with the family.
So I saw you kayaking.
I went kayaking last week.
Oh,
I'm going to be in DC this week, and I'm going to try to kayak on the Chesapeake.
What?
So pretty excited about that.
You're kidding, right?
I'm very serious.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and listen, I have it,
Okay.
and I want to just go on the water.
Okay.
And Isaiah, apparently, I'm supposed to take you out on the water before the summer's over. I don't know if you're going to get permission.
I don't know if his mother's signing off on that one. I don't know if that's gonna happen, Fred. I think you're on your right. You're on your own. You're on your own with that one, Fred.
I took out your dad a couple of years ago, and
And he almost drowned.
Almost drowned. Yo, quick story on that? Quick story.
All right.
The quick story is this. Me and Fred, we go out, about 200 yards from the shore.
something
Okay.
like that.
Then Fred goes, oh, I don't know how to swim. I was like, Fred, turn the boat around now. Let's go back, man.
Right.
This guy does not know how to swim, and he's like in the middle of the Atlantic.
If I did know how to swim, how does that help you?
No, I'm saying I was concerned about you, man.
You got to worry about yourself.
I know how to
If
swim.
the boat capsized, I have a life jacket.
Oh, okay.
And
All right,
he
man.
did not, right?
No,
He took his off.
No.
Right.
Oh,
Jesus.
going on.
That's what I'm talking
All
about.
right, man. Okay, all right. Okay. Jeez, you and your kayaking stories, man. All right, that's the next podcast. All right,
Okay.
Fred's kayak stories.
Gosh.
All right, okay. So today we got a special guest with us today.
Yes, everybody. Let's welcome Sarah Himmel Smith.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Sarah is a New York-based plus-size model, digital influencer, and storyteller represented by True Model Management. She has a deep understanding and passion for the plus-size consumer. After being body shamed for many years, she decided to be one of the people who changes the way beauty is defined in society. In 2017, she left her corporate job in energy communications and dedicated her life to promoting the size, age, diversity agenda by creating and publishing imagery on her Instagram at The Curvy Trini, desensitizing people from seeing plus-size women in fashion and utilizing storytelling to empower people of all shapes, ages, abilities, races, and gender/sexual identities to understand their worth. She works with brands to create positive change in the fashion industry. Let's give her another round
All
of
right.
applause. Yes, welcome.
Yes.
Guys, thanks for having me.
Yes,
Happy
thanks
to be
for
here with you all
coming.
today.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Awesome,
Thank you for coming.
awesome.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Just I guess a little bit about your story in terms of how you got started with modeling. If that's okay. Like.
Yeah, sure, happy to do it.
Mhm.
So basically, I was body shamed a lot growing up. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. So we were actually having a little conversation about that earlier. You know, your West Indian parents grow you up in a way that's pretty harsh. They want to make sure that you're strong enough to handle what the world throws at you. So, when I was 12 years old, my uncle came over and, I was there happy playing with my friends, and he calls me aside and he says, you're getting older now and it's time for you to lose that weight. Because if you don't lose that weight, nobody is going to want to date or marry you. And that's just one of the instances that I dealt with growing up, being shamed a lot about being plus size, growing up in a plus size body. So when I hit my like mid-20s, I found these women on Instagram that were plus size from all over the world,
Okay.
from a hashtag called BOPO, which means body positivity, and they were dressed gorgeously and looking beautiful, and that just kind of triggered this like huge aha moment in my mind where I realized this isn't true. These things that we're constantly told that, like, you know, if you're fat, you're worthless, or that you're not attractive, or you're not good, or it's rubbish. It's not true. And I just decided, like, I wanted to be a part of that change. You know, I wanted to be a part of that shift. And through a series of crazy and magical events, here I am in New York City as a plus size model.
Yes, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I definitely can identify with growing up Haitian. Yeah, that was interesting. You know, as you say, Caribbean parents can be very cutting. They can say things to you that they think will motivate you,
Right.
but honestly and truly it does quite the opposite. So, and it goes sometimes even beyond body shaming, or, it's if in your studies in school, if you do something around the house and you didn't do it right, you get, cut down for that. So I can totally identify with that culture,
Real quick, so you said that you're the uncle and maybe possible other family members that put you down. When you saw that post on Instagram, what clicked mentally to say, you know what, I am beautiful inside and outside? What clicked? Like, did you see someone say something, or it was just the imagery of them?
It was just like all this imagery, growing up in the Caribbean, they don't really have clothes to fit me. So every time I would go shopping with my mother, it was a crying scene. We walk in the store, the only thing they have that could fit me is old granny looking clothes. And my mother screams at me and says, "You're so damn fat, that's why nothing could fit you." And I would sob and cry, and then that would be every time I went shopping. But with the internet, all of these online websites with nice clothes for plus size women and thing, I was able to discover through Instagram. It was just like one day I was just kind of scrolling through, and I just, like, the first person I saw was Ashley Graham, who's this very famous plus size model.
Okay.
And then I started to just kind of the hashtag and just like all these different women, and they're wearing all these clothes, and I'm like, where they getting these clothes? And I found like Ashley Shorts, I found Eloquy, I found a bunch of these brands, and I was like, hold on a minute, like what registered for me was that, like, I always thought that my body was the problem, and I was always trying to make myself smaller. I suffered bouts of like anorexia and bulimia growing up, always trying to lose weight so that I could have clothes, so that I can feel, because at the end of the day, when you look good, you feel good.
Right.
Yes.
It's very dehumanizing to not be able to have clothing to fit your body. That is a very dehumanizing thing. And so I found like all of these websites and stuff, and I was like, I need to get a skybox. Like, I started to order clothes, and then I started to feel completely differently about myself. And I realized, like, my body wasn't the problem. The problem was the clothes that I had access to. And also, like, the imagery as well, right? Because when you look out into the media and stuff, you only seeing, especially then, a certain type of woman or a certain type of body type that was exhibited as beautiful. So never seeing myself reflected anywhere in the media was just kind of like, well, then I'm not beautiful, I'm not good. But seeing all these women on Instagram dress beautifully with bodies like mine, and women from all over the world, it was just like a huge like awakening moment for me. I was like, wait a minute, like this isn't true. You know what I mean? Like, just because I am size 18 doesn't mean that I can't be beautiful, or I can't be sexy, or I can't be something that's lovely.
Yes.
So that was That was it for me. And then I was like, I want to, like, that candle lit in me and that fire lit in me, and I just want to light it everywhere I can.
Yes,
You know, so I
yes,
started the Instagram where, like, you know, I just started to create pictures so that other people could see it as well. And I started telling stories. Because, you know, sometimes, like, I'm sure my uncle, because my uncle passed away, the uncle that told me that, he probably died never even knowing the damage that he did to me.
Right, right.
That man probably died having no idea the impact that those words had on me.
Wow.
You know, and so sometimes telling stories, that's why I love to tell stories, because people love stories, people listen to stories, and through stories we can realize, like, that there's an impact in the words that I say. You know, there can be repercussions for the things that I say or I do. You know, so that's it. So I tell stories in my captions of all kinds of different things. It's not only focused on body positivity, that's a part of it, but just like little human stories. You know, like I told a story recently of like this little old lady who came up talking to me in the street. Cute little Puerto Rican lady, not taller than my belly button, like the littlest lady. She's like, I'm 88 years old, you know, and she was telling me all about her life and her faith, and you know, she considers herself Roman Catholic, and all about like her faith. You know, I'm not particularly like super religious person, but there's so much power in faith and prayer, and she's telling me all about these horrible things that she'd been through in her life. Her father committed suicide, she lost her husband, all of these things, but that faith in a higher power is what got her through that, and that's so beautiful. So I just share the story about the little old lady, and you know, just like I tell like little stories of different things just to help people to start to kind of think about whatever it is, something inspirational. You know, I feel like social media can be such a ugly place. I mean, you're constantly like comparing yourself and feeling bad about yourself. I wanted to create something that was positive, something that was, you know, thought-provoking, and something that people could see every day and kind of get a little hope or think about something in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about how you got your foot into the modeling world?
Sure. So I started this Instagram because of a course that I was taking at NYU, and a woman came in to speak to the class about influencer marketing, and she was like, you should be an influencer. And I started the Instagram, and through Instagram I ended up working with a bunch of global plus size fashion brands. All these brands would find me on Instagram and reach out to me, like Eloquii, Tommy Hilfiger with Macy's, and invite me to do these campaigns. So I kind of developed like a pretty extensive portfolio of global brands that I'd done digital campaigns for. And I had a feeling that I needed to be in New York City. But I had no idea how I was going to do that. You know, my background being PR and communications, I was exploring that aspect of it. I was here doing courses, meeting people. Nothing was working. And everywhere I went, people kept telling me, you should be a model. You should be a plus size model. Everywhere I went. And it was like the universe was just telling me that. And I'm like, I can't be a model. You know, my whole life, I told, you know, you're not this, you're not that, you're not... And I've never been like a fashion girl, like, because I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have access to clothes. So like all of this was just like really weird for me. And I kept getting blocked with the PR and the communications. And I said, I'm coming back to New York one more time. And I came back and I was like, I'm going to apply to modeling agencies and just see what happens. That's what everybody's telling me I should do. I'm just going to try it.
Okay.
So I went to a plus size fashion event, and I was walking up these stairs, and I complimented this woman on her skirts. Turns out that she's the owner of a modeling agency in New York,
Wow, really?
like a top modeling agency called True Model Management. And we were like laughing and talking about a bunch of things, and I'm like, do you hire plus size models from Trinidad? She's like, I hire models from all over the world, why don't you come in on Monday?
Wow.
And I went in and I got signed.
Wow.
And I got my work visa during the time of the government shutdown,
Wow.
which is wild, you know, and it's like, to get the type of visa that I got is really, really hard. It's like the hardest work visa to get. So I just believe that there's some kind of like divine purpose for me to be here, and there's some kind of work that I have to do.
Yeah.
Because these things don't just, to this day I never even applied to a modeling agency. I just met that woman, and like that was that. And she's an incredible woman, and like she is a wonderful force in and of herself. But
It was meant to be.
it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I just moved here 4 months ago, and you know, I've been, they say New York hazes you. I'm sure anybody who lives there could agree with that,
Something like
you know. It's like one day up and one day you're down.
Yeah.
It's like, do you
Yeah.
really want to live there? yes, I do. I do. So
Yeah.
so now,
No, I'm sorry. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Well, actually, you mentioned bulimia and anorexia.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how, like, what that was like, and then how you got past that. If you
Sure.
could talk a little bit about that.
So, you know, like teenage girls kind of teach each other really sick things. I don't know if you're all familiar. Well,
Never been a teenage girl, but
but yeah, right,
Yes,
yeah,
but I can relate.
right. So, you know, always wanting to be thin because that was what was in.
Yeah.
And one day I went to spend a weekend by my friend, and she was like, oh, like I just found out about this thing you could do where like you wouldn't put on any weight and you could eat anything you want. You just have to like throw up your food. And I was like, sweet. So that's what I did for a couple of years. And you know, in secondary school, like I used to starve my body to the point of like fainting. You know, I would literally faint in school, and the teachers would be like, what happened to her? And they come and give me a Coca-Cola to drink, and then off I went. So like, you know, I really internalized that wanting to be thin and wanting to be the standard of beauty. And you know, when you're constantly told that like something's wrong with you and you're not good, like two things can happen. Either you can like internalize that, and it just destroys you from within, you destroy yourself, or you can choose to like use that and do something positive with it. When I was younger, I didn't know any better, and it destroyed me. That feeling of not being good enough, not being thin enough, not being beautiful enough, it destroyed me. And I didn't know any better. But you know, through those experiences, I can now come from the other side of it and utilize my skills and my storytelling capabilities to help other people. So, you know, you can turn something negative into something positive, and that's what I've chosen to do now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So, I wanted to kind of touch on, I know Caribbean culture. So, I told you guys that I grew up Haitian.
Yep.
So, one of the things that I also had to deal with growing up is that in Haiti, because Haiti is an impoverished nation, right? They don't particularly like to see people skinny, because if you're skinny, that means that you're not well off. I don't know if you know that. So my parents, my father used to always tell us that in Haiti, if somebody was really, really thin, that was like a sign that they didn't have money. So there was also an element of fattening you up, or trying to fatten you up. So my mom is a cooker and a feeder.
Sounds like
Okay.
fun. Let's invite me to dinner.
Yes. So growing up, she was always cooking, because I think there was also something about, and she used to always tell me and my sisters, men like meat, meaning that a man doesn't want a skinny woman. Right? So there's an element of you shouldn't be too fat, but you also shouldn't be too skinny. So I don't know if you've ever encountered that in Trinidad, like growing up, or was it just always that it was like a push for everybody to be thin? Like, is that the culture in Trinidad? Or
It depends on like the particular. I would say in like white culture in Trinidad and Tobago, it's all about like being thin.
okay.
You know, in other cultures it's about, well, not in like other segments of Trinidad and Tobago, like like you said, they like women with a little more meat,
Right,
you know.
right.
But in that kind of like little bubble society that I grew up in, that was what was very important.
To be thin.
To be thin.
Okay.
And it's a strange thing. Like people have something called a carnival diet. So I mean, you all heard of carnival, Trinidad and Tobago
yes,
carnival.
yeah,
What's the carnival?
The carnival diet. So from like for Christmas time, you eat like crazy and you have all your fun and your food and thing. But from January, you better get in the gym and start to make sure your body looking good because carnival's coming around the corner. So
Right.
people go to like very unhealthy lengths during the months of like January, February coming up to carnival where they just like exercise and like do eat and all this craziness to make sure their body's looking good for the roads. It's like a very kind of complicated relationship with food, like
Yeah.
you know, but there's also the shaming for the thinness as well. So it's not only something that's exclusive about being bigger, you're also shamed if you're too thin. That is something
right,
too.
Right, yeah, because people can find anything to pick on you about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've only been in the modeling world for 4 months, but what do you see yourself long term doing back home, if anything, with this success, this passion that you have, this opportunity that you have to educate the people, the children that are presumably back home in Trinidad and Tobago?
My dream, and this is gonna sound funny, but my dream is to get a huge group of global, like famous global plus size models, and we all go to Trinidad for carnival, and we all wear the tiniest little bathing suits, and we just have a ball.
Yes.
And then I want us to go to the universities and a couple schools and do talks about body positivity and host panels and have talks and conversations, you know, opening up that conversation about, you know, just not shaming people. I was sharing earlier, like, I feel like in this politically correct world that we live in, where you don't want to offend anybody, you don't want to say anything that's like bad about, which is great, like that's important. I feel like fatness is one of the last things that it's still okay to shame people about. I feel like it's still culturally appropriate to shame people about fatness. And I think that that's something that really needs to change because fat people are human too. Fat people have feelings as well, right? So it's completely culturally appropriate to be standing up talking to your fat friend and be like, "Gad, like I just ate all this food, I feel so fat and nasty," or that's like a very normal thing to say, right? Or to somebody you haven't seen in a little while. Hey, you get real fat, boy. Look how fat you get. Like that's like a very like normal
very Caribbean
thing to
thing.
say. And like a very Caribbean thing to say.
Absolutely.
Right.
But and fat has become this like ugly, like demonic, nasty word. It's just a describing word. It's just like saying, oh, like someone's tall or someone is old or young or whatever it is, you know. And we've attached all of this like negative connotation and negative meaning to this word. It's a word that's used as like an insult when it's just a describing word. And like, you know, people tend to like bring up this argument about health.
Right.
So you think, oh, well, you know, fat people are unhealthy. Okay, but do you go around shaming people that have cancer? Do you go around telling them that they're worthless
That's true.
and nobody's gonna love them because they have an illness?
That's true.
As well as fatness does not mean that you're unhealthy, because there are plenty of people that are very fat, that are very healthy and have everything. Like I'm plus size and I have good health, praise God. You know, I have a good healthy body. You know, and so that's something that I think about a lot and something that I want to help shift.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really I like what you just said. We gotta capture that. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something like you said, you throw around those words all the time and you don't really think about what they mean. We have 2 teen girls here, and I was gonna just what would you say to them, not only them but you know teen girls in general who might be struggling with that issue of their their body image and things like that.
Oh God, it's gonna make me emotional. Like,
Okay.
I would just tell them that they're beautiful and good just the way they are. And even if the people in their lives don't believe in them, it's important for them to believe in themselves. And I would want them to know that the way that they look does not equate with their worth. Their worth is something that is always there.
Mhm.
It's always there.
Mhm.
They are worthy because they are alive.
Mhm.
Independent of the way that they look or the health of their body or what their friends or their families think about. No. You started being good and worthy. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
And I would just really want them to know that all of this fashion and beauty, I work in the fashion industry, but it's all marketing driven. It's all a fantasy. One of the things, it's like if you're trying to sell something, there are different ways that you can encourage people to buy.
Mhm.
One of them is by invoking fear,
Mm.
right? One of them is by making people feel like if I don't have this product,
Right.
then then something is wrong with me.
Right.
So I have to buy this product. It's
Yeah.
invoking fear.
Yeah.
I believe that we can move away from fear-based advertising tactics and we can move into more inclusive and positive ways to encourage people to buy goods and services and clothing. I don't think that we can move from like a exclusivity-based marketing paradigm to one that's more inclusive and one that's kinder. And I think that it's actually going to do something good for like the bottom line from a business perspective, as well as just like the way that we make people feel.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So I want those young people to know that like it's not reality, if that makes any sense.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And I think it's so important too, especially for preteen and teen girls, like right around that middle school age
Yeah.
Right.
is where they start to, I guess, become aware of how they look. You know, my daughter, she wanted to be on social media. And I told her definitely not, because I know what social media does to, you know, image perception, you know, how I look. And you see all these people on social media and they're filtering their selfies and they're doing this and they're doing that. And you're over here thinking, wow, that person really looks good. How, you know, how can I look like that? How can I get to look like that? And then the next thing you know, you're trying to become something that's not even real. You know, so it's so important, I think, at their ages, right around that age, 12 and 13, is where they start to, you know, if you don't channel it, it can become a little bit obsessive. So, you know, that's so important what you're saying for that age group. Yeah.
What's the next thing for you on? Actually, before I even ask that, there's a move now towards plus size models, right? It's more acceptable.
Yes.
How is that received in the modeling industry? Like, is that like with the thinner models? And I mean, I'm sure you guys are in the same rooms or taking pictures together at some point. So how is that received with them?
There's a rumbling happening
A
in the
rumbling.
fashion industry. There's a
Okay.
tremor,
Okay.
right? It's like people are starting to kind of like wake up to the fact of like beauty comes in all shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
And the brands are starting to like make those changes. So like bit by bit, like things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the standard of fashion that is produced for straight sized, I don't think that standard is produced for plus size yet. The quality of like the shows and stuff that are produced for straight size fashion during fashion week and stuff, like sometimes I find like the plus size shows can kind of look like not like high fashion, like not but what we are seeing now is that you will have like a plus size model will be included in the lineup of the high fashion shows, which I think is awesome.
Okay.
You know, I don't think that there should really be a separation. You know, sometimes people can be very defensive and be like, we're plus size, like we're good, like we want our own things. Like I think that like fashion is fashion, people are people, and I think that the shows, I'm hoping that we start to see, because we have been seeing it more and more of all types, all identifications, all sizes, all shapes being shown as a standard of beauty and being exhibited as a standard of beauty in the fashion world.
Okay.
You know, I haven't had any experiences of being around like straight size models and them not being nice to me or anything like that. Everybody's always been super professional and really lovely that I've had. But
Okay.
I've only been there for 4 months. But I do have girlfriends. One of my friends, she shared with me that there was a photographer.
Mhm.
They were on a shoot and it was all different sizes on the shoot. And the photographer was kind of ignoring her.
Okay.
Right? And he was going on and on about, he's shooting these straight size models. You're gorgeous. And like all of that's very normal. You want the model to feel good. But for her, he would just not say anything.
Yeah.
And so there is still this attitude, in subtle ways that of like fatness not being beautiful. Like the photographers, some of them, there's some photographers who love to shoot plus size models, but there's still some people that are still holding on inside. Like the
Yeah.
brand is like, oh, it's good for marketing. We need to have a fat girl there. But like
Wow.
inside,
You're right.
inside they're like, yeah, but she's still a fat girl. She's not beautiful. We just have to do this because this is what's trending in the market. So there's
Right.
still some of that,
Yeah.
still some of that happening.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more subtle. But I don't care if that's what people think inside. I don't care because you know what? The plus size model's there.
Yeah.
She's gonna look beautiful, and it's awesome that she's there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's just something. Anytime they have change in anything, there's gonna be resistance.
Yeah.
That's a good
yeah.
point. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
And that's important too, what you said about sometimes it's not always what they're saying to you, but it's what they're not saying or
Right.
what they're not doing, and kind of making you feel invisible, like you're not there.
Right.
Which is also horrible.
Well, actually, Deshaun, let me ask you for a second because I know you were in the modeling industry for a while. All right, so what? How
That was
about?
before Instagram.
Way before Instagram.
Well, since we're talking about plus size models, I guess in terms of men,
Right.
I mean, men being plus size models or just even how men deal with that issue that we're talking about today. What was it like just being in?
Well,
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you put me on the spot. Back then, for me, it was not. I wasn't a plus size model. It was,
But I'm saying it's like big on the heavy body issues and like.
Oh yeah, being like more muscular, having more like abs and stuff like that. Because I remember one time I had a friend, and he used to do at least 1,000 sit-ups a day, just because
Wow.
he knew like
Wow.
I have to have these abs, because if I don't have these abs, then they're not gonna. When I go on these auditions, they're not gonna, and I have to take off my shirt, they're not gonna like what they see. So
Wow.
it does. It's hard on men as well, because you got to look a certain way. You want to, you got to be in like a 32 waist, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
Wow.
So
And so, Sarah, do they have like plus size male models in the industry, or?
There's actually this. They do have male plus size models, but it's not a thing like how the
Right.
female plus
Right,
size
right.
models is becoming a thing.
Okay.
It's not as much of a thing as it should be. I think. I
Okay.
think that men get shoved into the background. I think that it's not okay for like a man to be like, oh, it's offensive when you're like a fat boy. You're supposed to just laugh and kind of. So I think that like that is something that needs to be addressed. A lot of times men, like male plus size models, I think that they need to be more in the forefront now.
Right.
I think that like their time
Right.
has to come now too.
Right.
So they have male. I mean, I've
They do
never seen
have-
that.
They do have like
Oh.
big and tall male plus size
Yeah.
models.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then, just like you said, you don't really see that.
Right.
You know
Yeah,
what
I didn't even know that existed.
So
Okay.
it's time for them, I think, to also be included and in the forefront as well.
Well, did this I mean, I don't know if I know you said you haven't been in the country that long, but you're did this come along the same time as the Me Too movement? Like in terms of women's rights and standing up for your rights, that kind of stuff?
What the whole like plus size
Yeah,
movement?
were they kind of like working together?
I think I don't like I could be wrong. So if anybody listening in
Right.
thinks that I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I'm not pretending to be like a full
Right.
expert on this. I'm not sure about like chronology or timelines and stuff, but I don't think that this was really something that was tied into the Me Too movement. No.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question. Now that you're a model, how do like I don't know if your siblings or family members look at you now?
That's a good question.
You know,
Yeah.
like you're a model now.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I have to tell
Because
myself that I'm like,
You're-
Sarah,
you're-
you're actually a model. Like, you live in New York City,
Yes.
you're my model.
Yes.
Remember that, you know?
Yes.
Because it's still hard for me to process. I think that a lot of people back home had a hard time understanding how I got this,
Right.
if that makes sense. I
Yep.
think that a lot of people didn't know, because also too it's very radical what I've done, right? Like, you know, in Trinidad I have a beautiful house, had a lovely life, like financially didn't really have to work. I you know, worked in the corporate world for 6 years, and then all of a sudden at 31 years old it's like, oh, Sarah's moving to New York to be a plus size model. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's just
right,
kind of
yeah.
like out of like nowhere.
Right.
I think that, you know, and nobody's expressed this to me, but this could be my intuition, it could also be my mind overthinking, but a part of me, people weren't very excited. A lot of people weren't very excited for me, if that makes
Right,
sense.
yeah.
I would
They
go
were or
out,
they weren't?
they weren't.
Oh.
Yes.
I would go out and people wouldn't really ask me any questions about what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or they wouldn't really like be like, Sarah, like, that's awesome, you're moving.
Right.
Like,
Right.
people weren't, I have a few close friends that would, but a lot of people kind of like didn't really know what to do with me. They're kind of like, that's like really like, you know, because think about it, like, if for your whole life you've strived to be thin and you're on your carnival diet, and that's beauty.
Right.
And then here comes Sarah, right?
Yes.
Here comes Sarah,
Right.
who doesn't do that anymore, and Sarah gets this opportunity
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
to New York to
Yeah.
be a plus size model. That doesn't make any sense.
Yes,
right,
You understand? That doesn't
right,
make any
right,
sense.
Right.
So, again, it was all very shocking and very radical what I did. I think, you know, like when I first started my Instagram, there was a lot of buzz and like a lot of people were like calling my mother asking if I'd gone crazy and why I was doing this and what was wrong with me. You know, because nobody really talks about those kind of things, especially in like that community that I was a part of, you know.
What did it, when you studied, what did they think was crazy?
Because it's just like, oh, all of a sudden, you see, I was developing a personal brand. I was creating a brand.
Okay.
People thought that I was just creating like an Instagram about myself, like my real life, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, why doesn't she have pictures of like, you know, her people in her life? Why is it only pictures of her? And, you know, why is she telling all these stories? That's like such personal stuff. Why is she doing that? But I knew that I was creating a personal brand.
Right.
And a lot of people back home didn't know about what influencer marketing was. So they didn't understand all of that. They just thought it was like me just like talking about myself and like doing all these things. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah.
what I was doing was very like radical and like new world compared to what was being done there. So
Right.
people were just kind of like, oh,
Right.
she's weird.
Right,
She's
right.
weird. You know
And
what I mean?
also, what you're doing too is the thing that they think is so ugly or so hideous
Right,
or
right,
whatever,
right.
and you've actually taken that and you're succeeding at doing something with it. You're prospering at doing something with it. So it's like, well, you know, that's the thing that nobody's doing,
Right.
and you're taking it and doing something with it. So
Right.
of course they're not going to congratulate
Right,
you.
and that's the thing that nobody wants to be.
Right.
Nobody wants to.
Right.
You can be anything in the world, but do not be fat.
Right, right.
Okay,
right.
so
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, but I'm like embracing being fat or embracing
Right,
my
right.
body being bigger
And
Right.
doing something
and,
with
and
it.
trying to
Yeah.
like do something with it,
Yeah.
and also having some semblance of success in that, in the fact that I got my work visa. Like people, when I went back home and I was waiting on a work visa to be approved, people kept coming up to me and they're like, how you could get a work visa? Like, I tried to get a work visa and I couldn't get one. How are you going to get a work visa? You're not gonna get that work visa. You ain't gonna get that. That's what people
it-
told. My own mother told me that.
Yeah.
But I think she secretly didn't want me to get it.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
you know, I faced a lot of negativity in what I was doing, but it was in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, like when some kind of work is in your spirit and your soul, no matter what's happened, you cannot stop it. Even if it looks crazy, it did look crazy. What I did was crazy. You know what I mean? I left a 3-bedroom house in Trinidad to move to a bedroom in Brooklyn, sleeping on the floor, all kind of madness. You know what I mean? Like, it's madness. But I'm happy to be here. I want to be here.
Madness.
Yeah, it is madness.
Welcome to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Join the rest of the mad people.
Yeah.
So, do you see yourself ever moving back home?
I don't think so. I think that
Wow.
it's kind of like it's like New York is my soul's home. I was born in Trinidad. I love my culture. I love my people. Yes, there's some bad things, but that's everywhere. I love my heritage. I love my family, my friends. There's a lot of beauty in Trinidad, but I need to expand and I need to grow. And I feel like the type of work that I have to do is very strange and it's very unique. And New York City is the place where I can do that work from.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that I would have the I would love to go back to Trinidad to help in any way that I can. Like I said, I hope to be doing like motivational speaking and storytelling, and I would love to be able to go back to Trinidad and like give back in that way and be able to help shift perceptions back there as
Maybe
well.
start a plus size modeling agency
I
in
mean,
Trinidad.
we
that's
need a plus size modeling
There you go.
agency in Trinidad.
Change the whole
Awesome.
carnival.
Maybe we need to have a couple, I think it was either last year or the year before, was because usually for carnival they have like the carnival parties where they're like selling the costumes basically. You go and they have all the girls on the runway with the sexy, quote unquote, sexy bodies, skinny bodies, wearing the costumes and thing. And last year, I think it was, or the year before, was the first time that they had a plus size model on the runway in Trinidad. So that was very iconic and that was very, very, very awesome. I was really happy when I saw that. It gave me some hope because
Yeah.
before it was never that.
Right.
So, real quick, how do you feel? Like you said, that gave you some hope, but now you're the hope for so many other young girls. How does that feel?
Sometimes I suffer from bouts of imposter syndrome. Like when I was preparing to do my TED talk, it was like, wow, like this is real. You know, people actually, like, I do have something to say. And same thing, like we were laughing earlier, like, yeah, I am a plus size model. I'm an agency signed plus size model living in New York City. It's kind of like you know, so much change has happened for me in the past like few months. It's like my mind still has to like wrap around that. But I do take it very, very seriously. Because like I said, like this is my soul's mission, my soul's work. I really want to kind of like be a catalyst for change and really make sure that like whatever it is I'm doing is something positive and heart focused and heart centered, not ego focused. You know,
Okay.
it's not about me. It's really not about me. It's about the message. I just happen to, you know, be like one of the people that can tell the message, but it's not really about me. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something I have to stop like thinking about it being about me. It's not about me. That's
Yeah.
what I have to keep remembering.
Yeah.
You know, like it's scary to put yourself out there. It's scary to like be
Yeah.
in the forefront, but that's what I have to keep remembering. Like it's not about me.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, the message.
So if people wanted to contact you, if they had questions, if they were you know, inspired by you know what you said here today, how would they contact you? What would be the best way to do that?
Best way to reach me is find me on Instagram. I'm at the Curvy Trini, right?
Okay.
Awesome name.
TheCurvyTrini. Slide into my DMs. I love
Yeah.
to chat.
Yes.
That's probably like the best way to reach me for right now.
Another question: since you've been up in New York for 4 months, you're a model. How are the fellas treating you now?
I mean, I'm married.
Okay.
So I don't really care like how the fellas treat me, but
Okay.
you know, I mean, that's the thing. So the thing is, people think that nobody wants plus size women,
Right.
but it's not the truth. Like
Right.
I get hit on a regular basis.
Okay.
My plus size model girlfriends, like a couple of us, if we go out to dancing or something, it's just men, just.
Wow.
You know, so it's not, and I think another level of this is that I think that a lot of men are very attracted to plus size women, but they're ashamed because they'll be teased by their family and their friends.
That's a good
So
point.
That's a great
they
point.
hide they hide the plus size women. They maybe date them in secret or whatever. And it's so sad.
Wow.
Now, my wife is a plus size woman, and I'm very proud.
Good.
Very
That's
proud.
awesome.
Well, wait, what's considered plus size? Like
Yeah.
starting where? Actually,
Yeah,
because
what- yeah,
I
I don't know.
didn't see your wife as that, but go
In the
ahead.
fashion industry, you know, like size 12 and above is considered plus size. So size 14 is really like where the plus size starts,
Okay, all right,
right?
okay, all right.
14 and above.
Wow, yeah.
But the average, it's something like 68% of women in North America are considered to be plus size.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's actually like the
68%.
majority. So I'm like, why is this even a thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
Marilyn
what?
Monroe was a size 14.
Right.
And she was beautiful.
Oh my God, an
Marilyn
iconic
Monroe.
fashion icon
Yeah.
of this
Yeah,
century.
size
like,
14,
she-
yeah.
Wow.
So it's just kind of like, why is this a thing?
Yeah.
You know?
Wow, I mean, listen, you've definitely given me some things to think about today.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
Awesome.
yeah,
The
about
message is awesome.
men hiding their girlfriend.
No, I'm telling
I mean, no, I'm
you,
saying,
It's
I'm
wild.
thinking about what you're saying, though.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking
No, it's
about what you're
wild.
saying.
Like I have had friends of mine that
Wow.
are plus size that, you know, they would be dating these guys, but they never take them out on a date. They'd only come to their house,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they would never
Wow.
take them to meet their friends or their family,
Yeah.
because they're ashamed that they love plus size women. They're physically, emotionally attracted to these plus size women, but their families would tease them, or their boys would be like, "Hey, you're like fat girls," and all this kind of thing. You know, it's like,
There's an
because
element of insecurity as well
Of
on the
course.
man's part, you
Wow.
know, so
Of
they have
course.
to get a woman that looks a certain way.
And then, you know, these girls would feel so ashamed of themselves that they would accept that kind of treatment because they're just happy somebody likes them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very real thing.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
sounds crazy and absurd, but
no,
it's very,
no,
very real.
Yeah, it's true. It's
And
true.
it's very sad.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Well, Mrs. Sarah Hamel-Smith, we want to thank you for coming by. You've
Yeah.
definitely given us a lot to think about,
Yes.
and we appreciate all the insight, and
Yeah.
we definitely want to wish you the best going forward. You got to come
Yeah.
back and give us an update.
Yeah.
You know, when you're on the world stage doing your thing. You know?
Good stories for you next time.
Yes,
Yeah, so thank you
absolutely.
very much for coming by.
Thank you
we
for
appreciate
coming
it.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.